Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Perpetual Chess. Listeners, we've got a bonus pod for you. It's been a while since we've done one, but there's a format that I've been wanting to try out on the podcast, and I thought that the timing was right. What we're going to do for this podcast is we're going to hear the perspective on a single tournament from three different people who played in the tournament in different sections with different backgrounds. The tournament in question was part of the Las Vegas International Chess Festival, and it is the National Open, which recently concluded in, wait for it, Las Vegas. Listeners who heard my interview with Grandmaster Ben Feingold may have heard that Ben was going to be there sort of as one of the hosting personalities, along with I am Eric Rosen. And this is a tournament I've been curious about for a while because I've heard really good things about sort of the community there. And I love that they have so many different activities. They have a women's tournament for women to compete in on their own leading up to the main event, which is like a huge tournament with lots of different sections. And they have a blitz tournament, simul's, etc. So I thought it would be a fun tournament to hear different people's perspectives on. So if you guys like this episode, let me know. Maybe we'll do more of these in the future. I know we've got a lot of international listeners. So if you're from abroad, we might do this for international tournaments in the future as well. So we've got three guests coming your way. First up will be Todd Bryant, aka StrongChess. He's known as StrongChess on chess.com and on his Twitter account. He is a software engineer, a dad, a chess dad, and a USCF master who made a last-minute decision to play in the 3-day section of the tournament and reflects on his experience and lessons learned, and it sounded like he had a good time. Second on the pod will be Lindsey Newhall. She founded the Death Valley Chess Club, and so she's a tournament director, a teacher. She's also a stay-at-home mom. And as you'll hear Lindsey say, her family has been doing family reunions at this tournament for many years. So she had a good time and spoke highly of it as well. And last but not least, we have a return guest, Cody Smith, who was an adult improver guest last year. He's made pretty quick gains pursuing chess in recent years. And he lives in Alabama, and this was his first sort of big getaway, large open tournament. And he got to meet a lot of other chess Twitch streamers and also had a good time and some wisdom to share. So I hope you all enjoy this episode. Do let me know what you think of the format, Ben at perpetualchesspod.com, or hit me up on social media as the case may be. It's also been a while since I bugged you guys to subscribe to my free newsletter covering chess events, the Perpetual Chess Link Fest. I will put a link to that. And of course, I'd like to thank Chessable, as always, for their sponsorship of Perpetual Chess. Be sure to check out their courses. So without further ado, I want to get you all to the interviews. First up is National Master Todd Bryant, and you can find the timestamps of the guests in the show description. Okay, here we go. Enjoy the show. And we are here with someone I've been online friends with for years, but actually never spoken even via computer with, and I'm excited to chat with him. He is a USCF master, a strong and improving blitz player. He recently hit 2,500 on chess.com for the first time, and I know he's been in the lab working for years, so I was happy to see that improvement in his 30s. He's a software engineer for chess.com, a chess dad, an avid weightlifter. You can find him on Twitter as StrongChess. That is also his chess.com handle. And let's give a long overdue welcome to Todd Bryant. How are you, Todd?
Hello, I'm doing great. Super excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and Todd, as we've corresponded about, I've been wanting to do a longer form interview with you because you work so hard on your blitz game and you've seen some good progress lately, and I know you have a lot of good ideas to share. But first, I was looking for guests to talk about the National Open. So I'm excited to get that trip report. I know you've been playing a lot. I was reviewing your history. So my first question, Todd, is when did you know you were going to play this tournament?
Yeah, so it's a funny story. I actually wasn't planning to play this tournament. It was kind of a last minute thing. I've been planning to play a shorter weekend tournament in Orlando that same weekend. But I had a hotel room and I had no roommate. So I was reaching around to some friends trying to get somebody to room with me. And one of the people that I contacted was my friend, Mike Zelazny, who is a master from Las Vegas and a classic character in the chess world. And he said, no, cancel that. Come with me, stay at my house, and come play in Vegas. And as it happened, it was very good timing because we had dropped off our kids at my wife's parents, and we were out going to see a punk rock show, and I had some beers. So it was the perfect moment of, being a little suggestible and willing to go on an adventure. So I booked some last minute Frontier flights, and the rest was history.
Oh, fun. Shout out to Mike, another person I've never met in person, but yeah, his heart always bleeds on the page when he writes about his tournaments and on
Absolutely,
Facebook. So I always enjoy reading the ups and downs, and I know he's working hard too.
for sure.
So last minute decision to play, and then Todd, so you're rated in the 2200s USCF. Um,
Yes.
and you decided to play the under 2300 section. So what went into the decision of playing basically your level rather than swimming with the absolute monster sharks in the open section?
Yeah, it was basically two things. Because it was a last minute trip, I wanted to keep the amount of travel contained. So the open section in this tournament was a mandatory 5 day schedule, whereas in the under 2300, I could play 7 games instead of nine and compact it into 3 days with a not so crazy accelerated schedule. So that just seemed like a reasonable balance to me. The other thing that was interesting was that I hadn't played an under section in, I think, over 10 years. I had played under 2000, under 2200, like under 1600, various years at the World Open, usually striking out and not winning any money. So I thought it would be fun to take a crack at one of these big prize sections again as well.
Okay, yeah, that makes some sense given the circumstances. I didn't know about the 3 day thing, although it still sounds crazy to me. So, how many games did you have? Was it four and then five and then two? What was the schedule? Or no, 3 days. Sorry, tell me the
Yeah,
schedule.
yeah. So 3 days. So the under sections are 7 rounds in this tournament compared to the 9 round open section. So the schedule was not so crazy. It was only 3 games on the first day, followed by 2 games on each of the next 2 days. So the main tournament, the time control was game 90 plus 30 seconds. The first 2 rounds, you played game 60 with an increment of 10 seconds. So it was enough that I was, maybe a little tired by the end of day one, but it wasn't nearly as aggressive as the 2 day schedule in which people played 4 games of like game 25 plus five, followed by a main tournament game
Okay, yeah,
in the
it would.
first day.
Yeah, 322. It would be too much for me, but it's not like unfathomable.
Exactly.
And the other thing is, of course, you're an avid weightlifter, often sharing your videos online. Take your fitness seriously. So, do you feel like that helps you when you go to play 3 fast games in a day?
Yeah, certainly. I've thought about like fitness and chess for a long time. I think it's something that's like completely overlooked in the chess world. People go to these tournaments and they want to like compete at their maximum ability, but in a lot of cases, players play maybe no attention to fitness at all, even though their body is like the thing that's carrying their brain around all day. And
Right.
so I think that I've definitely noticed a correlation between having good stamina and being in shape. Right now, I think I'm probably like in the best shape of my life. I've been focusing a little more on weightlifting than cardio, and maybe that is something that is important for just stamina. But in general, I felt very sharp and had good steady energy during this tournament. Like in previous years when I hadn't been working out as much, maybe I'm beat up by the end of like a long tournament. Whereas at the end of this one, I felt like pretty good. I felt like I could have played a few more games.
Yeah, and also like it's like a 1-2 punch because not only do you take your fitness very seriously, you take your blitz very seriously. So like
Yes.
to roll into like a game 60 tournament, whereas like an old man like me is in, in a state of mild panic. For you, it's like it's probably a competitive edge.
Yeah, that was actually really interesting. I had a lot of positive surprises from the years of Blitz that I've been playing, and definitely one of them was that I was used to spending a lot of time on Justice from playing lots of Blitz, and when I got into time pressure, I wasn't nervous. I felt that I was calculating well, and I was able to throw some punches.
Okay. So would you say, do you consider, if you compare, say, action and classical, which I would define action as, 30-minute, classical as 90-minute, and the 60-minute kind of as a hybrid, but still feels pretty fast to me. So would you say you're stronger at the sort of action slash game 60 format than classical?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because it's really changed for me in the past couple of years. It used to be, up until a couple of years ago, all my entire chess playing life, that I was much stronger in like really slow time controls and kind of weak in the fast ones. And now I feel that that's possibly reversed because I've become a bit of a blitz specialist in the last couple of years. But that's like still a very recent trend in my life.
Okay. Well, it's encouraging to hear that such a change is even possible. You're Todd, you're 36, 37. How old are you?
36.
Okay. Yeah. As I've said before on the pod, when you look up the FIDE page, you know the year, but you don't know the birth date.
Exactly.
So I didn't know which one. Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's encouraging that one can make that change. So you're going into this tournament. Once you do decide to play, long flight there, do you set any goals in your mind? How do you approach that sort of thing?
No, so I didn't think about goals at all. One thing that I've learned from Blitz is that, in like a 7 game period, there's a wide, array of possible results that can happen. And a lot of it is going to be due to luck. So I wasn't thinking about like a certain score. I was really, I just came in with a very positive mindset. I'm at like a kind of a happy point in my life where I've changed the way that I think about a lot of things. And I just came wanting to play like good chess. I was excited to go there because I got to meet a whole bunch of friends, stay with my friend Mike Solosny, and my goal was just like to play as well as I could and to try to create some quality chess games. That was
Okay.
really all I was thinking about.
And you get to hang the mission accomplished banner, 5.5 out of 7, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely on the good end of the spectrum of possible results for sure.
Excellent. And what are the stories of the games? I mean, there's always a million. Like I look at the cross table and I don't
Yeah.
feel the blood, sweat, and tears. How did the games go?
Yeah. So, I started out with 2 out of 3 on the first day. I had a clean win in round one. In rounds two, I had a little accident and lost a pawn, but managed to hold on for a draw. Uh, Round three, I was playing some dragon and kind of spoiled a good position, but held on in a bad rook ending. Then in the classical games, I started playing well. In round four, I played a 9-year-old kid who was a little lower rated than me and managed to get a great attack and win. Round five was my most interesting game, probably. So I play a line in my repertoire that is very risky, and by very risky I mean just potentially completely unsound, but it leads to complicated positions that I'm comfortable in, and I know a good bit in those lines. So this guy prepared for me. He came out swinging with some dangerous opening preparation. Uh, but I knew a little bit, and we navigated into this completely crazy opposite side castling um, position where my king side was getting nuked to smithereens, but suddenly I had some counterplay and was generating threats. And it was just a really back and forth struggle, both of us finding shots that the other person had overlooked. And finally, at the end of it, I got into some exchange down endgame where, I had very dangerous counterplay, and I managed to navigate the tactics and time pressure a little better than him and won that game. So I was really happy with that game. Probably was my favorite game of the tournament just because it was such a typical, struggle, which I think is what OTB chess is really all about. So at this point, I had a decent score going into the last day. I got a dangerous pairing in round 6 against my friend Julian Perleco, who's strong player and was the top seed in this tournament. He was 22.98. He was pressing me hard, but managed to he made a hasty decision to try to press me in a 4 versus 3 rook ending. And I managed to hold that even though I had a big time disadvantage. So I was happy to hang on there. And then the final round was the money round for me. So whoever won got a prize. And I was playing a Chilean player who was unrated USCF. He had a 2177 FIDE rating, so potentially quite a dangerous player. And we had an open Sicilian, which is like kind of an ideal last round structure for me. I get to, throw my pawns to the king side and go for a crazy attack. And that was what happened to the game. And I managed to get the better of the tactics there.
Awesome. Saying you won like $400, is that right?
329. Yeah.
Okay.
Normally 5.5 out of 7 is a pretty good score in this tournament, but this year it had just record-breaking attendance. So there were 160 players in this 7-round section. So to win the big money, you needed like 6 or 6.5.
Okay. Yeah. And part of the reason I've been wanting to do like a sort of multi-perspective retrospective on a tournament for a while now, but I felt like something that appealed to me about this one was I mean, I know it's very well run, it has a good reputation, but I also like the fact
Yes.
that it's like a festival, and that like Eric Rosen and Ben Feingold are there now. Obviously, you're the strongest player that's going to be featured in this triumvirate. Like you're probably not as like starry eyed when it comes to titled players as some other people we might speak with. But I am curious, Todd, like, did you get to do anything outside of just like focusing on your games? I mean, I know you had some friends there as well.
Yeah, that was one of the big draws for me in the tournament. So there's a Discord server that I've been pretty active in for a couple of years now, which was originally called Chess Homies. And
Uh,
it's just a bunch of friends talking about chess. So I got to meet up with a bunch of those people. I got to hang out with Mike Zelazny. I stayed at his house. His wife, Vanessa, I talked to her for a bunch of hours, and she made us a bunch of awesome meals, which really helped out during the tournament because normally, you're like getting in food, maybe bad quality food at the hotel wherever you can. So that was really helpful. And at the end of the tournament on Monday, I had a night flight back. It was like the only flight that I could get. So we got some time in the afternoon to go climb a mountain in Nevada. So we hiked all the way up to the top of this big mountain called Mount Charleston, and that was a very cool experience.
oh, nice. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
good. Not leading the degenerate life in Vegas, out there in nature. Good to
Exactly.
hear. Excellent. So where does this leave you? So it sounds like you, as you said earlier, you try not to be too goal oriented, but I see you've been playing a lot. So I guess the plan going forward is that will continue.
Yeah, I am trying. I've been grinding blitz for like, a solid 2, 3 years, and I finally hit, this goal of hitting 2,500 in blitz. So now I'm trying to have more of a balance of playing over the board. I thought it was a good idea what Dean Ippolito said on your podcast that if you want to improve at OTB, you really need to play one serious tournament a month. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to do that. I have the World Open coming up next, which I had originally planned to play. So there I'm going to be splitting an Airbnb with my good longtime chess friend Aaron Kahn. So we're going to play the open section in that tournament, and after that, I'm going to try to continue to play a stream of serious OTB tournaments regularly.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to be playing the World Open, unfortunately. But do you know which schedule you're playing?
The 5 day open.
5 day. Okay. Maybe I'm leaving town, but I might be able to stop by. It would be great to
Nice.
meet
Yeah.
in person. And so you probably haven't even had a chance to review all of your games in detail yet, but sort of big picture, do you come away with anything you feel like you did well or need to work on, or both?
Yes. Yeah. So I think that after years of cranking out blitz games and studying my openings, my knowledge of my repertoire was good. One thing that's really improved where I kind of feel like a new player is that I've developed a much better intuition for chess than like I've ever had in my life, especially my intuition for what to do in the opening and what to do in the early middle game coming out of the opening. And that's just been, developed a little bit of a time playing lots of blitz games and checking them afterwards. I think on the negative side, it was pretty clear that in a couple moments, like my long-term calculation, either to find some like, long sequence that led to a win or to, analyze a bunch of lines deeply and figure out the correct plan was not at 100%, which I think is exactly what you would expect the trade-off is from,
Right.
focusing specifically on blitz. So I think that in the future, I'm definitely going to continue playing blitz, but I probably need to mix in some slower calculation work as well to get those skills back up.
Yeah, that's my tentative plan as I start to get back to chess soon, is blitz and calculation and not much else.
Yes.
um, well, I mean, it sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like you're having good success. It's good to see, Todd. Now, one question I had as we wrap up, you mentioned in that particular game that you're proud you pulled out, the slugfest, that your opponent brought some prep to the table. We were discussing before we recorded that you do play often a fairly narrow repertoire. So like, how do you contextualize that? How do you like philosophically decide on that? And does it worry you when something like that might happen?
Yeah, I have very mixed feelings about that because on the one hand, like this particular line that I've played is a very risky one, and people have prepared against me in it in the past. It's just that nobody has managed to completely crush me out of the opening yet because they can't play like a computer forever, and I know a little bit about what I'm doing and I'm quite comfortable in those positions. So I think that even though it seems like a huge liability, maybe practically it's not so bad. One thing that I noticed in this tournament was that I couldn't like frantically prepare and the 15 minutes before the round for almost any of my opponents. And it wasn't such a bad thing because instead of doing that and like, generating all this like using all this extra energy and generating, a bunch of anxiety, I would just go to like an empty room or hallway and put on my Headspace app and do a meditation for 10 minutes. And I think that that actually had a much more positive impact than, frantically trying to do some last minute cramming in some opening line that I don't know. So possibly this last minute preparation is a little bit overrated. I think that I'm coming around to that philosophy.
Wow, that's fascinating, and it doesn't really surprise me, but in the moment it's so hard to not just like spend
It's
that time.
irresistible. Yeah.
To look it up. But you say it wasn't really possible. Is that because you couldn't find their info or you weren't getting the pairing in
Yes.
time?
Yeah, it's because I couldn't find their info in 6 out of 7 games. And the one dude that I did prepare for, I like in a rush looked up some line and got it on the board, sometimes moves of theory. But what I hadn't realized until just this morning was that the line that I looked up was an informational line in my chessable course saying why I don't recommend this variation.
That's
So it was a complete waste anyway.
that's very funny. And let me ask you, so are you looking just for their online accounts? Are you checking ChessBase or both when you try to look them up?
No, the gold mine of information is always in their online accounts, right?
Right.
Because like if you find them on ChessBase, maybe you'll find like 7 games. It's very unlikely that you'll have anything that even remotely intersects with your repertoire. Whereas if you can find them on chess.com and Chess, you just go to Opening Tree or a similar tool like that, and you can just, basically play out the game that you're about to have in 15 minutes. And most of the time it will be successful, or a lot of the time it will be successful in predicting what you're going to get on the board. So overwhelmingly, you want to find a chess.com or Chess accounts.
Yeah. Okay. Just making sure. Yeah. It's funny how quickly things have changed because it wasn't,
Yeah, it's a new thing. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, Todd, this has been great. We'll leave some meat on the bone for a longer conversation sometime down the road. But I guess in closing, so would you recommend this tournament for people who are looking for a weekend getaway?
Oh, absolutely. It was a fantastically run tournament. It was super fun. They had a bunch of fun extras. For example, if you got a plus score in the tournament, you win a $50 credit to the bookstore. And all of these sets and boards are provided. They provide these nice silicone boards with their Vegas Chess Festival logo on it. And if you win the last game or draw with black in the final round, you get to keep the board and set. So it's a bunch of fun extra prizes, really well run. I would definitely recommend it.
Wow, fascinating. Now, of course, I'm wondering about their business model. So wait, explain the $50 gift card again. How did one win that?
So if you get a plus score in the tournaments, you get a $50 gift card.
Wow.
So basically, I assume that they know, roughly how many $50 credits they're going to pay out, and this is baked into the entry fee.
Yeah, still very generous overall.
Yeah,
I mean, and to get to keep the board as well. All right, well, Todd, this has been great. Congrats on a successful tournament. Sounds like a lot of fun. And if I don't catch you in Philly, well, A, we'll catch up on the pod soon, and B, someday we'll meet in person.
Sounds good.
All right, take care, Todd.
Thanks so much.
And we are here with Lindsey Newhall. She is a chess teacher, player, tournament director. She started a club in Death Valley, California, where she lives. It is called Death Valley Chess. She is also a mom, and she has lots of chess players in her extended family. They do a reunion of sorts at the National Open. So in addition to playing the tournament, she gets to catch up with family. She also played in the women's tournament. And for more about Lindsey's background, you guys should check out episode 58 of the Chess Journeys podcast. Shout out to Chess Journeys. Always fun to hear people's stories, and Lindsey's story is no exception. But without further ado, let's welcome Lindsey to the show. Welcome, Lindsey.
Hello, thank you. I'm so excited to be here on Perpetual Chess.
Thanks, Lindsey. I'm excited to hear hear more of your story. We've been corresponding for a while, and I felt like since I want to cover this tournament from many angles, and your angle is so unique. So how long has your family been meeting at the National Open?
I should have asked my dad. I don't know, but I know that my first time at the National Open was, I believe, in the mid-90s. When it was still back at the Riviera, RIP Riviera,
right,
across from Circus Circus, which was a big deal to me back when I was like 12 and 13. And that was in the mid-90s. And so we've been going at least since then.
And have you made it every year, or have you missed some years?
No, I have only played, I want to say I personally have played maybe 5 or 6 times in the last, I guess that in the mid 90s would be almost 30 years ago, starting when I was a kid. But I have gone to more when I wasn't a player, just to hang out with the family, because we would have at least a few players, my dad, my uncle, sometimes my grandmother, and a bunch of my cousins, my first cousins.
Amazing how many chess players are in your extended family. I mean, it's something like 6 tournament players, something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, at least a few of them have died, over the years, as people do, but we still have a few active players. And then we have like spouses of the cousins who have started playing. And then soon, I hope, children, like my daughter. I hope she's going to be one of the next Newhall players in a few years when she learns. She's only 3 right now, so we're just learning the names of the pieces right now.
Okay, yeah, she's got some time. And Lindsey, how does that sort of frame your objective? So I interviewed a national master who played in the tournament, who, he wanted to have a good tournament, but no one I've interviewed has said like scoring every point was their primary priority. But how do you look going in? Like, is it primarily a social thing? Are you really trying to do well in chess? Are you training in advance? What's your mindset going to this year in particular?
This year in particular was kind of interesting because it was my second year as an adult player who actually cared about the game. Previously, when I went as a kid, or even as in my mid-20s when I competed, I did not care about chess. Like, I didn't dislike chess, but I didn't care to study it. I didn't know names of openings. I just went just for fun with my family. It was a family activity. And I didn't really care if I won or lost. But last year and this year, I cared. I prepared. I tried to prepare. This year, I did about as well as I thought I might do. Of course, not as well as I'd hoped. I only won 3 out of 10 played games between the women's and the national opens. But I did realize that I really need to focus on end games, because so many of my close games went to end games. And I think if I were really good at end games, I definitely could have salvaged those points. So that's what I need to focus on. And luckily for me, I love end games. I think they're really fun. But primarily, my goal is just to have fun, reconnect with family. I love seeing family, and meet new friends, which I did this year, reconnect with old friends, like a bunch of people I met at last year's tournament. And that was really cool. Like my last game was played against a fellow Peace Corps volunteer who volunteered in Ghana, and I volunteered in Ukraine. And we had made friends because he saw my Peace Corps tote bag, and he was like, "Oh, wow, last year, yeah." And we were paired up in the last game of the National Open, so that was really cool. And I was like, okay, no matter who wins between us, Peace Corps wins.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. It's just nice to meet friendly people. And I normally really like my opponents. They're all really nice people. A lot of them are parents like I am, or little kids. And that's kind of cool. It's cool, like, to play kids when I have a kid. And I'm like, God, I hope my kid is playing chess like you in a few years. It's cool. But one thing that I really found significant for me this year was the fact that I'm kind of grappling with the question of identity, because I am recently, 3 years ago, a new mother. And of course, your whole life changes when you become a parent, especially a stay-at-home parent like I am. There's no other option in Death Valley. There's no childcare here. And so, like, my whole identity has kind of been reorganized, and chess has been such an amazing outlet for mental escape and intellectualism and finding community outside of my home. And I've been going through some personal issues lately, nothing too major, but things that have been taking a lot of my mental capacity. And I found that when I was at the Women's Open, for the 1 hour to the 3.5 hours that I was playing each chess game, I achieved flow. And that's all I was thinking about, was this chess game. And it was such a meditative experience. And that's one reason I love chess, because you can get completely lost in it. And when you're going through hard times, or when you're trying to figure out what next to do in life. Like it's such an important thing to have that kind of outlet and to meet people through it. And I remember my old chess coach when I was a kid, like when I took lessons for 6 weeks from Jay Stallings when I was a kid. So shout out to Coach Jay.
Yeah, shout out to Coach Jay.
He's awesome. One of his lessons was, when in doubt, develop a piece. And I was never into chess, but I remembered that my whole life. And I was like, wow, I can relate that to all aspects of life. And now I'm like, I'm turning 40 soon, and I'm in doubt as to what to do next. So I guess I'll just focus on any area of my life and develop that. So that's why chess has been very meaningful, and especially at the Open, where you're surrounded by all these people who love chess. Oh God, I love going to tournaments. It's like my favorite thing. In-person tournaments.
That was so poetic, Lindsey, and very relatable. I feel the same way about tournaments. I mean, I don't love everything about them. You know, I find them stressful. Like you as a parent, it can be tough to get away. You feel a little guilty about being away from your kids, as you and Kevin talked about on chess journeys, but that feeling of escapism and focus that you get may make it worth it.
I don't feel that guilty. I don't feel that guilty. I'm thinking to myself, what's a good, you know, my daughter came home. She and my husband went to Dallas for 5 days while I was at the tournaments to visit his family. And they had the time of their lives. They went to a cool place every day. And she came home and she was like, I want to play chess. Because she knew that's all I was doing for 5 days. And I'm like, this is great. Like I feel like I'm setting a good example for her of like doing something that's just for me. That's a healthy thing to do. That also builds community and builds intellect and patience and resilience. And I'm like, this is the kind of thing that I want to show my daughter that I'm doing, that she can do too, especially if she chooses to become a mother or a stay-at-home mom at some point. But yeah. But you know what? Actually, this was the first tournament that I took buys because I was tired, because turns out I am 5 months pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, now I'm like, and this was an unexpected pregnancy. So I'm grappling with that too. So when the fetus, like when I was like studying the board and being like, oh, this is a sharp position. Should I do what, you know, what are my candidate moves? And then the fetus moves. I'm like, is that the baby trying to tell me, yes, do that, or no, definitely don't do that.
Right.
So I lost a lot of games. So I'm not sure that the pregnancy totally helped me, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing to me that you can even play. I mean, I know that pregnancies, they change the way your brain works. I mean, and obviously take a physical toll. So it's good that you didn't let it derail you, or at least since you had fun.
Oh yeah, it's so easy. It's a piece of cake.
Let me ask you, Lindsey, since you mentioned community, I know you also played in the Women's Open, which not that many tournaments offer a Women's Open. So how do you compare that experience of playing in the main event as well?
Oh, I love both. I love both National Open and the Women's Open for different reasons. The National Open obviously like is huge, and all different sections. You know, the National Open, I played in the under 1300 section because my rating hovers around 1,000 right now. And in the Women's Open, it's open. So I played someone rated, I think as low as provisional 700s and as high as she was almost 1,600. And they were really good games. I really enjoyed playing such a variety of opponents. In fact, I kind of prefer the open format. And there were only 67 opponents in the Women's Open as opposed to over like 1,000. But in my bracket, there were easily over 100 in my bracket in the National Open. But the Women's Open, it was so cool to see women and girls of all different ages. And it was really fun to talk to the other women afterwards, because we are a minority in chess. And it was just so cool to like meet friends. I met some new friends. We hung out. It was great. I had such a good time.
So would you say—
I love Women's Opens, women's tournaments.
Because some people argue against their existence. I'm I'm not one of them, but would you say that the vibe was like markedly different in the Women's Open?
Um, you know, I don't notice okay, personally, I guess I'm very lucky that I don't notice like a huge difference or with sexism or anything. My male opponents have all been, almost all have been very kind and respectful and normal and easy to talk to. But for me, I really like being around like-minded women in chess. So that's why I really like the Women's Open. And there are so few female chess players like in the general National Open. I had one female opponent. She was 13 or ish. She was, younger. I really liked her. Like, it was like, she was so fun. I mean, that was in the general Open. I didn't play any other, adult women. So it was really cool to have the gender issue not even be an issue in the Women's Open. And really, for me, any other tournaments, like any way to play more in-person chess, I'll go with.
Okay.
So I don't care who I'm playing as long as I'm playing over the board with someone. But yeah, I think Women's Opens, for me, I don't have an issue playing men or women or any age, but I know for a lot of women it might be very intimidating to have your first over the board experience or like club experience be with so many men, especially if you feel self-conscious in some way, or your opponents or the vibe is just not very good in your chess club. So I think a Women's Open is really nice for a lot of people who haven't had positive experiences across the board like I have. So I do think it's very valuable.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it seems like it can't hurt to me. It's and I'm glad to hear that it was a positive experience. Now, Lindsey, in your interview with Kevin, you mentioned that you really prefer over the board play. You don't find online to be as compelling, and living in sort of a less densely populated area, we can safely say, it can be a challenge to find people to play. So as you got ready for the tournament, you said you did want to do well in this tournament. And what you weren't just going, you were excited to see family and friends, but you also were competing. So how did leading up to the tournament, were you able to do much prep?
Yeah, I run a chess club here in Death Valley, and I'm so happy that we are half female here, but because mostly it's like a social club, because we only have like a few actually serious players in our club. So I would play over the board with people in Death Valley. We have a chess meeting once a week, like a chess club meet once a week. And then I also teach some kids here in Death Valley and online a few times a week. And basically we just go through like tactics books and endgame books and how to beat your dad in chess, which I renamed How to Beat Your Mom in Chess, because
Jen's working on a book along those lines, Jen Shahade.
I would love I would love that. I would love it.
Hope I didn't reveal any secrets there, Jen, but anyway, go ahead.
Shout out to Jen Shahade as well, one of my heroines. She's really cool. So so we go over tactics and we go over common checkmate patterns and things like that. So that helps me too, obviously. Honestly, it's hard for me to just sit down and study. But if I'm with a group of people, or if I'm teaching kids or something, like that's my study time. Because I get distracted all the time by my 3-year-old. Like she's always coming to talk to me, and like soon she'll be able to learn chess, and I'm excited about that. But by then I'll have like another little kid. So also I am very fortunate that I collaborate with Bridgeopolis Chess Club in Las Vegas. And I think the director, Marvin Rabb, wants to rename it to Southern Nevada Chess pretty soon. So I'm not sure which name to give, but he kind of works around Death Valley Chess's schedule. And I try to bring players to his live in-person over the board tournaments once a month. And so I get to go once a month to play in person in Las Vegas, which is about 2.5 hours from Death Valley. It's our closest major city. And so that has been a lifesaver and a godsend to be able to play once a month in person at Bridgeopolis. So that gives me some practice too. And again, finding flow and something to do outside the home as a mother. So that's how I prepped. I practiced, I taught, I read books, I played in my club, and I played at another small chess club once a month. But honestly, I could have put so much more time into it, but really, like, how much time do we have in a day? You know, I'm trying not to beat myself up for like not being able to study more than like a half hour, an hour a day. And in the end of the day, chess for me is about community and personal development and enjoyment. I don't have these huge rating goals because that's just not my focus in chess. So I'm giving myself grace.
No, I fully support that. I think half an hour to an hour a day. I mean, that's a big part of our lives. If we do that every day, you know, that's like
it's too much for me. I just it's hard for me even to do that.
Yeah, no, totally understandable. And of course, as you mentioned, the tournament is part of a larger festival. I've asked both Todd Bryant and Cody Smith, who are also going to be on the pod, about like, you know, Eric Rosen was there, Ben Feingold was there were simuls. I don't even know what all the events were, but are events like that part of the attraction for you? Did you seek any of that stuff out?
Yeah, it's so much fun. So a couple of my kid students were in the youth trophy tournament, the international youth tournament. They did way better this year than last year. So like, as their teacher, I was like, oh, thank God. And I really wanted to play in the Blitz sectional and the Walter Brown Memorial, but I made a big mistake this year. I made a big mistake. My mistake was I invited a non-chess player friend to come stay with me for 2 nights, Friday and Saturday night, my friend from college. And she's really into fine dining and eating really good food. And so that really I had a great time with her. We had so much fun. And the restaurants we went to were amazing. But that really took away from my chess time.
Right.
And since I can only go to Vegas chess festivals, you know, once a year, every June, I'm like, okay, next year I really have to focus on chess and the family. And I'll also have a 6-month-old. So I'll have to focus on the baby too. Little chupacabra, as we call it. Huh. So that's the working title. So yeah, I think next year is going to look a little different than this year.
That's funny. Yeah, the perils
of the focus on chess.
Okay. yeah, the perils of having the tournament in Vegas. What was the best meal you had there?
Oh God. We went to Momofuku.
Oh, nice.
It's a Japanese place, and my friend, when she made the reservation, said it was her birthday, so we got like the best seat overlooking the strip. That was really good. But that was a fancy meal. Otherwise, I will say we went to Bonito Michoacan, which was only like 3 blocks from the Rio where the chess festival was, and that was really good. And we went to an Ethiopian restaurant, and that was really good too.
Yeah,
it was a weekend of great food. Oh, and this Thai place we went to, Lamai, oh, it was so good. I love food. I do.
And it's nice, you know, when you live in a smaller area and then you go someplace with an international community like Vegas has to eat all the ethnic foods. So
yeah, Vegas, I think is a great host city for a chess event. It's pretty easy to drive around. It's always easy to find hotels. As long as you're not staying on the strip, it's easy to drive around. And I like that Vegas chess festivals usually host these big tournaments off strip. I like that because parking is usually free. Driving around, you can drive, you know, you don't have to go to the strip for every meal. So I'm a big proponent of off strip in Vegas chess festivals hosting. I wonder where they'll do it next year. There's the Las Vegas Open is at the end of August, and that's at the Flamingo, which is on the strip. But I'm pretty excited to go to that too.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds great to me. So Lindsey, as we wrap up, it sounds like you would recommend this tournament to anyone who's considering it.
Yeah, 100%. I think if you have agoraphobia or other, like you don't want to be around a lot of people, maybe don't go to this tournament. It's a lot of people, but it is so full of chess-loving energy. The vibe is awesome. People are friendly. If you're friendly too, you will definitely make friends. And I love going every year and seeing like the same people every year. Like I see people I recognize from like the the aughts and the 90s even. Like I see some people I recognize from them. I'm like, whoa, I don't remember their names, but I know their faces. So it's really cool because it's a yearly thing. And I think it's great for building the community that is chess. And I know that not everybody who plays chess cares about chess in that way, like the social aspect. But for those of us who do, it's so valuable to put in time and go repeatedly to these same tournaments.
Yeah. Well, what sounds good about the American Open in particular is it's kind of the best of both worlds, because as you allude to, the main event, it's a big tournament. It's a serious tournament with really strong players at the top, but there's also plenty of other activities and
yeah. It's great because it's all levels. You can compete in the open section and you can compete in the under section. And there are, as you said before, all these side events. Like you could go and just do blitz. Like it really is cool. It's something for everyone. I love it. I love it. And I had my team Newhall and my team Death Valley Checkwalla's there. And there were 4 players for each team this year. And it was so fun. So
Excellent.
I recommend it to everybody.
All right, maybe you'll even see me there someday. I'm gonna have to plan a trial balloon with my wife and see how it goes. But
where are you coming from?
I live in New Jersey, kind of a little bit closer to Philly than New York, but kind of in the middle.
You know, when I would ask people at the tournament, my opponents where they were from, so many were from out of state.
Yeah,
I met a woman from Atlanta and a man from New York, and you know, and like just all over the place. They're all coming to this tournament. I was like, wow, that's cool.
Excellent. Well, hope to see you there someday, Lindsey. But thanks for sharing your experience. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you for interviewing me, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me and to promote chess.
And we are here with a return adult improver guest. He is a 32-year-old Twitch streamer and chess instructor. I interviewed him back in March of 2022, episode 270, for anyone who has not heard that one. In that talk, our guest Cody talked about being a self-taught chess player with a over 2,000 Lee chess rating. He talked about how he was getting into tournament chess in Alabama, where he lives. I've been once again creeping on his USCF chess history, and I see that he has been playing mostly in Alabama, but he made the big trip to Vegas, and I'm excited to talk about his trip to Vegas. But first, let's welcome Cody Smith back to the podcast. Welcome back, Cody.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ben. Excited to be back.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat. So I had seen that it looks like you've made the trip to Georgia a couple times to play tournaments, but other than that, staying local. So what made you decide that now was the time for a big chess trip, Cody?
Well, it was a few things, I guess. I've been wanting to play sort of a big, national event like that for a while. I've never been to Las Vegas before, so that seemed like a nice double whammy, I guess. And on top of that, I also just had a lot of people that I've met through Twitch mostly that were also going to be playing in the event. So, I kind of just got to do a lot of fun things at once. Got to go play in a big tournament, got to experience Las Vegas, and got to meet a lot of people that I've known for a long time on the internet, but had never met in person before. So this was a perfect tournament for me to go to, I think.
Yeah, and I'm curious because obviously you're someone who takes your chess fairly seriously and you've made significant progress because of that. So I worry that a tournament like that, it would almost be too much. I kind of just want to like hunker down and play my games and, treat them seriously. Was that a struggle with so much stimulus there?
I think maybe so. But even still, it made it worthwhile just for the other factors I mentioned. Like I wasn't really studying openings too much between rounds or doing any kind of practice between rounds or anything, because I just wanted to hang out with the people that I knew. So that probably did maybe make my results a little bit less good than I would have liked. So yeah, I think it probably did. Chess wise, it detracted from it, but it was still a fun trip, and that was the primary goal, was to have a fun trip. So
that's a good primary goal to have. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I saw that you're rated in the 1600s. You played in the under 1900 section. That was
right.
I mean, that's not technically playing up, right? That was the lowest section you could play in. Is that correct?
No, I could have played the under 1700.
Oh, there was an under 17. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And I debated between those two, and I had a lot of input from my viewers on Twitch. Because I thought, if I play in the under 1700, I feel like I had as good of a chance as anybody to, win money, win a prize in that section. But I know, like, the sections are 150, 200 players or whatever it is. So to win any section, whether it's the under 1700 or the under 1900, would require, really, really strong play. And I just thought, like, well, if I'm going to play really well, then I'd rather play really well in the under 1900 than the under 1700. So I just thought I thought it'd be better to play up one section and get more games against higher rated players, which is what I ended up getting. So
Yeah, I mean, I think from a long-term perspective, that's for sure the best thing. I mean, I know you're a fan of Ben Feingold's streams, as we talked about in our last interview, and that's something that he's always stressing. You want to play stronger opponents. So,
right.
Yeah, but it's good that it's one thing to know it; it's another thing to actually do it. So,
yeah, I really was tempted to play the under 1700 and try to win a prize, because the prizes are way bigger than any prizes that we have for tournaments here in Alabama. But yeah,
do you remember how much first was for under 17?
Oh gosh, I don't remember.
Okay, I'm guessing
I know
5
it was
or 6
4 digits.
grand. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I'm sure it was significant.
right.
And of course, so you mentioned you had some friends there. I saw you had a picture with Eric Rosen, and of course, you've been chiming in on Feingold's streams for a while. So in addition to catching up with your own friends, what was it like at least meeting Eric and possibly crossing paths with Ben as well?
I did cross paths with Ben a couple times. It was great meeting Eric. I think I said the same thing about Ben the last time I was on the podcast, but Eric is like exactly as nice and pleasant in person as he comes across on Twitch and on YouTube. So yeah, it was great to meet him. And yeah, I mean, it was great meeting a lot of different people. I thought you might ask me, so I made a big list of like everyone that I met in Vegas. I don't know if you want the whole list, but
I do. But first, I just want to verify that the listed prize for under 1700 was 4,000. Although they actually went over their entry, so maybe they ended up even bumping it from there. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
But in any event, let's hear who else you met.
Okay, so these are Twitch streamers ranging from small to pretty big, but I met in the order that I encountered them. I met Bouncing Across, Brigham Aldrich, 95 Horatio, also known as John Davis, Potato Head LOLOL, Zephcat, Camel Clutcher, I Am Eric Rosen, GM Benjamin Feingold, GM Danish Boros, aka Chess Weeb, NM Rosie Chess, Japanese Tutor, Joe Bruin, KD Learns, Bali 1331, The Chess Tina, Filtering Spam, Yuri in the House, and I am Kostya Kavutsky of Chess Dojo Live.
Amazing. Wow.
So I think I got everybody. I'm sorry if I forgot someone.
Wow, that is amazing. And I know obviously many of those names, but not all of them.
Right.
So how many of like, was it a Twitch streaming community that you were primarily meeting, or just kind of like a chess community in terms of the actual people you were there to primarily hang out with?
It was pretty much a Twitch streaming community. There were also a few sort of regulars in a lot of these Twitch regular viewers,
right,
that also came. So I got to meet some of the viewers as well.
That's fun.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of the people that I mentioned there, we had been kind of discussing it over the past few months or maybe even a year about we should all go to this tournament in Las Vegas together. So yeah, it was, at least for me, it was mostly a Twitch thing.
Okay. So Todd Bryant, who listeners will have already heard on this podcast, he got his plane ticket like 2 days before the tournament. It sounds like you got yours well in advance.
Yeah, I did book it in advance. Yeah.
Okay. And did you stay at the Rio?
I stayed at the Rio, yes.
Okay. I spent many a night at the Rio back in my poker days. Nice. It had a pretty bad reputation back in those days, although I didn't think it was entirely deserved.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind the Rio, but between being busy with the tournament and hanging out with all those people I just listed, I didn't really end up leaving the Rio until after the tournament was already over.
Right.
So I kind of only had 1 or 1.5 days to actually explore Las Vegas. And then when I did get to walk around the Strip and see some of the other casinos, then I was kind of like, oh, I really wish the tournament had been at a different casino than the Rio, just to have been closer to everything. But the Rio was fine. It was just, I would have maybe liked it more at a different casino. But I saw next year they're having it at the Flamingo, which is more on the strip.
More central. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, I didn't check the specific weather, but generally this time of year in Vegas, it's so hot that extra little bit you have to walk to get to the strip from the Rio makes a difference. Or obviously you can pay $20 for a cab to drive you 2 minutes, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But let's bring it back to the chess, at least for the moment, Cody. So it sounds like you had a pretty casual approach, primarily meet some friends, chess vacation, playing some tougher opponents. But did you have any specific chess goals, whether they be like process or results oriented?
Well, I mean, I broke 1700 last year, USCF. I got up to, I think my peak's like 1706, like just a hair over 1700. So I've been trying to get back there for a while. And I've been taking it a little more seriously. Like I've been dedicating myself more to openings in particular. But I feel like even though my chess understanding is probably stronger now than it's ever been, I haven't really seen that reflected in the results yet. So, you know, I was really hoping to get back to 1700 or at least close, but I actually ended up losing 10 rating points instead. So chess goals didn't really work out.
Yeah, but, it happens.
Yeah.
And was there something that you can take home, like a specific lesson? Was it the openings or was it something else that you're like, man, you know, this just isn't where it needs to be?
I think it's really just endurance and being really careful throughout the game that I'm not making, you know, some big mistake, because I've looked over all of my games and the 4 decisive games that I had 1 win, 2 draws, 3 losses. So the 4 decisive games that I had winning positions in all of them. And I either missed a tactic that was winning, or in one instance, I was winning for most of the game and then just blundered at the end and lost. So I think for me, I really need to improve my consistency and just not kind of falling asleep when I'm ahead.
Right.
And I think I should win easily.
Okay. Well, those are fixable at least, you know.
Hopefully. That's been plaguing me for a little while though, so I've got to figure out what I need to do to fix that.
Okay. And we had a question from a Patreon supporter of the pod. This is from David Lazarus, who said he enjoyed our last interview, and he wanted to mention that he's also a fan like you of Lead Chess, just as an aside. But his question was, what he noted that you had said you were self-taught and wondered whether you would consider getting a coach to take your game to the next level.
It's something that's like I'm always thinking about, but I've never really come close to pulling the trigger on. I kind of think that maybe I should soon, but I haven't really made any specific plans to. I think it would be useful to have a stronger player, you know, looking over my games and, you know, finding things that maybe I wasn't thinking about and didn't even think about in my post-mortem or, you know, my analysis after the game. So I think it's something that I should probably do, even if it's not like a recurring thing. I probably should, you know, after a tournament like this, hire someone to help me look over the games and figure out, you know, what was the flaw in my thought process that led to the outcome being worse than I wanted.
Yeah, maybe just like a consultation, if not like regular meetings.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what else, like, so you've played locally in Alabama a lot. It looks like you've played a couple weekend tournaments in Georgia now. So how did this conform to your expectations in terms of finally getting to go to one of these big open tournaments?
Oh, I mean, I thought the tournament was great. I mean, it was really well run. It was exciting to be in such a large field.
Yeah.
Like the day before the event,
people, I think.
Sorry?
I think I saw 1,100 people, maybe?
I think it was actually over 1,200.
Wow, okay.
But I know it was a record. It was the largest field they've ever had. I think the previous record was in the 90s.
Okay, 900s.
So there was... the day before the event, me and a few friends went to see the playing hall just to see, you know, kind of where everything was, get the lay of the land. And I mean, I was just blown away at how giant the playing hall was and how many, you know, chessboards were in one room. So, I mean, that was the most exciting for me was, you know, to be in such a large event compared to, you know, the local tournaments here in Alabama. We rarely would get more than 100 people. Only pretty much for the state championship would we see more than 100. And I played in one or two in Georgia that, were in the hundreds, but nowhere near 1,000. So that was the most exciting part for me. And it was also kind of cool to know that I'm playing an event where, there's GMs and, really high level people that were also playing in the event. Like Hans Niemann was on board one for most of the event. So that was
Yeah.
kind of cool too.
Yeah, it was really strong event for sure. So it sounds like, would you try to go back again in the future?
I've already been thinking about it. Yeah.
Wow.
And I know there's also the North American Open is in Vegas, I think in
Yeah.
December. So I don't know if I can justify going twice in 1 year, but I've thought maybe next year I do the North American Open instead and see what that event is like. But I don't know. I had such a good time. I'm ready to go back. So
Yeah, I hear you, but it's a big expense, and
yeah, for sure.
And as you allude to, like, you kind of have to set the prizes aside, not think about them at
Right.
all. So no thoughts of like trying the World Open or something like that. I mean, I've been to a bunch of these. I've actually never been to the National Open, but
Oh, okay.
I could certainly power rank the ones I've been to, and I think the National Open is probably better.
The World Open is high on my list of ones that I would like to go to. But I mean, I definitely can. I think it's, what is it like? I think it's next weekend, right? There's no way I can do it this year. But that was one thought I had, is maybe next year I do like the World Open in the summer and do the North American Open in Vegas in the winter. But
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I would like to go to more of the big events and see as many of them as I can.
Yeah.
Price willing.
So in terms of all the people you met, Cody, any stories to go along with them? Or was it more like mostly just saying hi and stuff like that? You didn't play in any simul's, did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't play in any of the simul's or any of the side events. I was hoping to play maybe in some of the blitz events, but didn't get a chance to. As far as stories go, oh man, I mean, I have some from late nights that maybe I can't share, but
Those are the best kind. Yeah.
yeah. Oh man, I don't know if
So
I can
did you
think
have
of.
late nights like during the tournament? Because that's another thing people struggle with, because like you don't get to see your chess community that often. You're excited to see them. It's fun to hang out. But on the other hand, the tournament schedule is relentless. So like, how did you balance that?
Yeah, so there was really only one really late night, which was Saturday night. And I ended up taking a bye for the Sunday morning round because it was just too late.
Had you already planned that bye, or
no, I emailed the tournament director like in the middle of that night and said,
that's cool.
I'm not gonna show up tomorrow morning.
I'm all for, you laugh, but I'm all for, like, you got to find a balance, it's like,
right.
Yeah.
And at that point in the tournament, it was clear, like, I'm not going to be competing for any, prizes or anything like that. So
that was,
if I had been having a good event, I probably would have taken it a little more seriously,
So was that round 6? Was that round 4?
Yeah, round 6 was the round I took a bye for.
Okay. Because sometimes they have rules where for the last 2 rounds, you have to commit to a bye before the tournament, or sometimes it's like after the first round you have to commit to any bye. I find the rules to be a bit draconian. I mean, I understand they don't want people to game the system, but I think that there could be a little, like, I think what you did, not being in contention for a prize, like, taking a bye to sleep it off, like, I think that should be that there should be rules that allow that, when you're not in the open section, sort of thing.
Yeah, and they did have some of those rules, like you have to request a half-point bye so far in advance, and I was behind that, so it was a 0-point bye for me.
It was 0. Okay.
Yeah, it was a 0-point bye, which I guess doesn't really matter much, but I guess I would have had a slightly better pairing if I had gotten a half-point instead of 0, but
right,
it didn't really matter to me at that point.
Yeah, well, it is good that you did the right thing and like let them know so that someone doesn't end up without an opponent.
Right, that was the main thing I wanted to avoid.
Yeah. And let's see, so when your tournament was over, you mentioned you stayed an extra day, saw Vegas for the first time. What did you do?
It was mostly just walking around the strip, honestly, and just kind of seeing. It really just stayed in that one little corner where you have the Bellagio, Paris, Flamingo, and Caesars. So kind of just walked around, saw the Bellagio fountain, walked around Caesars, and I like sort of the Roman architecture of Caesars, so I thought that was cool. I got to play a little poker.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
saw
really
this.
a gambler aside from poker. So I
Okay.
played poker, but I didn't do any other gambling.
Yeah, and it looked like you had a good session based on your screenshot.
I did. I was happy with that.
That's good. And I saw Ben Feingold chiming in your comments. Did he or Karen play with you or?
No.
Okay.
I actually, on my stream last night, Ben was watching for a little bit, and I explained the big hands that I had. So he already knew the story. That was why he chimed in.
So you might as well tell it. I mean, it obviously involved queens.
Yeah,
before we say our goodbyes, listeners
queens.
can stop listening to all the poker haters. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. It's sort of a complicated hand because there were like 5 people involved. But I had pocket queens, and I raised pre-flop. There were 5 people that went to the flop. The flop was 10-10-5, which doesn't seem very scary. The player on the button bet small on the flop. I called on the turn. It was like a 7 or an 8, some kind of nothing card. And
I think I know where this is going, by the way.
Yeah. he made a small raise. Another player had bet and I called. He made a small raise. I thought about folding because it seemed like probably he has a 10, but the price was really, really good compared to the size of the pot. So I called, and the river was a queen.
Beautiful.
Which yeah, gives me a full house and the second nuts. So it went check ahead of me. I checked because I thought button's gonna bet. He went all in, the other player went all in, and I made a very easy call. Yeah, so it was a 3-way.
So did they both have it 10 or better, I guess?
Actually, the button had 10-5, which doesn't really make a lot of sense for him to have called pre-flop. And then I don't know what the other player had. He mucked his hand.
Okay,
so.
But probably another 10. Wow.
Yeah, probably.
Sounds like fun. Yeah. All right. Well, good stuff. So in closing, you would say, and by the way, I'll probably say this at the beginning too, but this is not like sponsored content for this tournament. I've had no interactions with the directors, and I've never even been to that tournament, this tournament. That's part of the reason I wanted to do this podcast. But basically, it sounds like you would strongly recommend it in closing.
Oh yeah, I have absolutely no regrets about going. It was a great time, both chess wise and otherwise, even if the chess wasn't up to what I was hoping for. My chess, the tournament was great.
Right. And at least you have some ideas of things to work on going forward, chess wise.
Definitely.
Cool. Okay. And CL Smith on Twitch, correct?
Yeah, it's CL Smith XV.
Okay.
So the last time I was on the podcast, it was CL Smith 1515, but had a little rebrand. So it's XV now, which is
that
Roman
was after you
15.
went to Caesars and saw the Roman architecture.
No, but that would make a lot of sense.
Right. Okay. Well, Cody, it was great to catch up. Sounds like a lot of fun. You got my FOMO going, so I'm sure you've got a couple. I'm sure some listeners are ready to book their flights as well. But thanks for sharing your trip report.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.